Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. We have some breaking news. UFC President Dana White announced another big fight for UFC 290 on July 8th, and that is Robert Whittaker versus Dricus Du Plessis. And this is going to be my reaction and early prediction, but it's going to be much more than that, because yesterday Dana White announced a bunch of middleweight fights that are relevant, that are in the top 10, and I'm going to go through every single one of those fight announcements and give a quick reaction and early prediction for those fights as well. And I'm also going to discuss how this could kind of lead a breadcrumb trail to us being able to figure out what's next for Israel Adesanya, and it might actually surprise you. So first off, my reaction to this fight news, I love it. I love it because UFC 290 is now incredibly stacked. The main event, as it appears right now, it might change, but it looks like the main event will be Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez, unifying the featherweight title. Then you have the co-main event, Brandon Moreno versus Alexandre Pantoja. I guess two, but technically it's a trilogy. They fought on The Ultimate Fighter. Either way, amazing flyweight title fight. Now I'm assuming right behind that is going to be Robert Whittaker versus Dricus Du Plessis. And Dricus Du Plessis is a guy that I've criticized for a while in terms of his skill set. Well, now we're going to find out just how good Dricus Du Plessis is. 8% Dricus Du Plessis, supposedly. Now he can breathe. His striking is going to be improved. His wrestling is going to be improved. His cardio is going to be improved. His fight IQ is going to be improved. All off of a nose surgery that fixed, I believe, a deviated septum. Now all his skills are going to enhance, according to him and his manager. He's on a long win streak. He's coming off, 2 top 15 wins, maybe even 3. I can't remember where Brad Tavares was ranked at the time. But his last fight against Derek Brunson was at UFC 285 in March of this year. I picked against Dricus there. And he lost the first round, and it wasn't looking good for him. But Derek Brunson is on his way out, and now he's officially, I believe he's officially retired. He retired the night of. I don't know if he's changed his mind since. The fight before that, he beat Darren Till. I picked Darren Till, even though I wasn't high on Darren Till. He beat Darren Till, and he submitted him face crank in the third round. And he also stopped Derek Brunson in the second round. The fight before that, he fought Brad Tavares. He beat Brad Tavares by decision. And Dricus Du Plessis is now on a short list of contenders in the middleweight division. As crazy as that sounds, currently in the rankings, he is sitting at number 6 in the middleweight rankings. And now that Israel Adesanya is back on top of the middleweight division, Alex Pereira is moving to light heavyweight. Adesanya's already fought a lot of these guys. And Dana White already clarified that this is a title eliminator. Now, you can't always base it off Dana White's words. Who knows what this actually means? Dana White, of course, is going to hype it up as much as he can. But there's a real good chance if Dricus Du Plessis wins this fight, I'm sure he's going to be getting the title shot, because depending on what happens in some of those other middleweight fights that we're going to talk about later in the video, there's really not an opponent, a lot of options that Adesanya hasn't already faced. And even if they haven't already faced him, they're not going to be on as long of a win streak as Dricus Du Plessis is. And if Du Plessis goes out there and beats Robert Whittaker, Dricus Du Plessis is the #1 contender without a doubt. But when I look at this fight and I look at Robert Whittaker, and I hate even using this expression because it's used far too often, but if Israel Adesanya did not exist, Robert Whittaker would be the champion. He's 1-1 in his last 2. He beat Marvin Vettori, went out there and absolutely outclassed Marvin Vettori in September of last year. His last fight before that was a rematch against Israel Adesanya. Lost via decision, very competitive fight. The fight before that, he beat Kelvin Gastelum, went out there, just outclassed him for 5 rounds. Fight before that, he beat Jared Cannonier. Basically outclassed Jared Cannonier. Fight before that, beat up Darren Till when Darren Till was actually still kind of good. And then the fight before that was when he lost his title to Israel Adesanya via KO. So, he lost his belt to Adesanya. He could have complained. He could have said, oh, I'm sitting out. I'm waiting for a rematch after I got 1 win over Darren Till. He fought 3 top guys. He got all 3 of those wins in basically dominant fashion. And he got a rematch with Adesanya, lost a close fight. And now he's looking to earn that trilogy. He came out recently and said, look, I want to fight Adesanya again. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get that fight against Israel Adesanya and take his middleweight title back. And now he's got Dricus Du Plessis in front of him. For all I say about Dricus Du Plessis and his skill set, the striking isn't particularly good. The defensive striking isn't particularly good. The stamina isn't particularly good. The wrestling isn't particularly good. What I can say about Dricus Du Plessis is he has an unbelievable heart, and he has absolutely no quit in him. He can be getting beat up and battered and destroyed, and he will continue to move forward and look to find a finish. And, you know, you got to respect that. You got to respect that. But I do believe he's had the easiest path to a #1 contender fight. And there was a time, you know, over the last week or so, I've been wondering, is Dricus Du Plessis going to get a title shot? Because he beat Derek Brunson, who I believe was ranked like #5 when he beat him. But Derek Brunson on his way out, on the decline, you know, basically in his last 2 fights, Derek Brunson's corner had to throw in the towel both times. The fight before that against Darren Till's not even in the UFC anymore, and Darren Till was way overhyped. The Brad Tavares fight was a solid win. I think Brad Tavares, honestly, is the best opponent that Dricus has beaten. But it's the path to contention. I mean, Dricus has a horseshoe up his ass. The way the UFC's booking him, it was the best path to contention. And I thought maybe they're just going to give him the title shot against Adesanya because he's on this long win streak in the middleweight division. Maybe they're going to give him the title shot, but no. Now he has to fight Robert Whittaker. And this is a real test because Robert Whittaker is so good. He's elite everywhere. He has great fight IQ, great striking, great grappling, great anti-grappling, good defensive striking. He's really good everywhere. Great stamina. There's really no part of Robert Whittaker's game that you can pick apart. And, you know, if Dricus wins this fight, it's going to be by sheer determination, grit, and a little bit of luck. Because I don't see how he wins this fight. He's not winning by decision. And Dricus should be happy that this is only a 3-round fight because this is a massive fight. Could have been a main event of a fight night card. Could have been like a 5-round co-main event of a pay-per-view similar to what they're doing with Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns. So Dricus does have a slight advantage in it being 3 rounds. But maybe his cardio is healed by his nose being cleared. You know, maybe that is true. But getting your nose cleared, I know I said, you know, sarcastically in the beginning, it's going to fix his striking, fix his grappling. It doesn't fix all that, okay? There is massive holes in Dricus Du Plessis' game. And for an early prediction, I am going Robert Whittaker late first round stoppage. I just think Robert Whittaker is in a different universe skill-wise in terms of, you know, what Dricus Du Plessis offers. He just charges forward. Half the time when he's throwing combinations, his stance is just squared up. He just squared up, plotting forward. And we saw even Marvin Vettori, who I believe is much better than Dricus Du Plessis, we saw what Whittaker did to him. We saw what Whittaker has done, you know, to guys like Jared Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum. And I think all those guys are better than Dricus Du Plessis. So I think Robert Whittaker, he's probably going to come out, get some reads early, be a little bit worried because Dricus does have a bit of power if he can clip you. Robert Whittaker isn't the biggest middleweight. I think he's going to be a little tentative early. He's going to find his spot, kind of start to get his reads. And then I think he will finish Dricus Du Plessis late first round, early second round. I don't think it's going to be a competitive fight. And maybe Robert Whittaker earns himself a title shot. I know Dana said it's a title eliminator, but maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. We're going to talk about that towards the end of the video when I talk about Israel Adesanya. Okay, the next matchup we are going to talk about is we have Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov. This is out of left field. Now, this will take place July 1st. It will be a main event of a fight night card. This one kind of came out of nowhere because Magomedov's not even ranked. He has one fight in the UFC against Dustin Stolfus. I mean, he got a big win in that. You know, he got a front kick and then brutally finished him in the first round, like the first 30 seconds. But, you know, that's his only fight in the UFC. The level of competition he's fought outside the UFC has been okay, but not great. But apparently what happened was Sean Strickland, he posted this, I believe, on his Instagram or Twitter. I can't remember. Somebody sent it to me. But basically, everyone was turning down fights with Sean Strickland, or he wasn't able to find an opponent over the summer. He wanted to fight over the summer. And basically, it got to a point where he just wants anyone. And now he's fighting Magomedov, who is unranked, but he looked very good in his UFC debut. And now you have a position where also I think the UFC is trying to build another contender. Look what they did with Alex Pereira. Now, that's a bit of a different situation. But if Abus Magomedov, I keep wanting to call him Nurmagomedov, but if he goes out there and beats a guy like Sean Strickland, who if you look at the rankings right now, he's currently ranked number 7, that puts Magomedov right in the mix at middleweight because there's not a whole lot of contenders. There's a lot of redundancy in the middleweight division. So that's a massive fight. Magomedov should be pumped that he's getting a Sean Strickland matchup. And, you know, when you start looking at that top 10, Sean Strickland, I don't want to say he's an easy fight. He's not an easy fight. We saw that against Nasruddin Imavov. Where Sean Strickland took that on short notice and still won and pretty clearly won. But, you know, when you start looking at the Robert Whittakers and, you know, outside of Dricus Du Plessis, you start looking at Marvin Vettori and Jared Cannonier, who we're going to talk about in a second. Sean Strickland is a very good stylistic matchup a guy that's not really going to go out there and look to take you down. He's really just going to look to use his hands and beat you up on the feet. And I think Abus Magomedov could win this fight. I just feel like I don't have enough data on him just yet. And Sean Strickland's a savage. I mean, Sean is an absolute savage. He fought Jared Cannonier in December, mid-December. Then he turned right around and fought Nasruddin Imavov in mid-January on short notice after Kelvin Gastelum pulled out. I was one of the very few that picked Sean Strickland in that fight. He went out there. I think it was a 50-45. I can't remember for 100% certainty, but it was a pretty clear win for Sean Strickland. And now he's taking a guy who, my guess is Magomedov was turned down by quite a few guys, maybe on the cusp of top 15 or in the low top 15. And now he's fighting Sean Strickland. So he's getting rewarded for kind of wanting to be active. And, if Sean Strickland wins, he's going to be on the short list of guys who has not yet challenged Israel Adesanya. So if Sean Strickland or Abus Magomedov gets a big win here, they're right up there in that title discussion as well, because even though Strickland would be beating an unranked guy, he'd be beating kind of a guy that has a little bit of hype behind him. And also, depending on how the division plays out, he might be one of the very few guys that Israel Adesanya hasn't faced before in a new challenge. And it's a sellable fight because Strickland will talk mad crap in the lead up and all that stuff. But for an early prediction for this fight, I got to go Sean Strickland. I just know more about Sean Strickland's style. He's a very good striker. He hits, it's not like nuclear power, but he has power to really bust you up. He has good defensive wrestling. And, I worry about this one a little bit, and I will do an official prediction when we get closer, but I have to go Sean Strickland probably by decision or late, like 4th round stoppage, but I'm very interested in that fight. The other fight that Dana White announced, because he announced Strickland versus Abus yesterday, and he announced the other fight, or he announced Whittaker versus Dricus Du Plessis today, but also yesterday, he announced Jared Cannonier versus Marvin Vettori, and, basically now the whole top 10 is booked for fights. We're going to talk about the entire division as a whole in a minute. But, this fight is very interesting. This is going down June 17th, a fight night main event. Marvin Vettori coming off that win over Roman Dolidze. He really didn't look particularly good in that fight. Some people even thought he lost at UFC 286 in March. The fight before that, he got absolutely schooled by Robert Whittaker back in September of last year. Vettori's a guy who is very good everywhere, but he's not particularly great anywhere. And he's already fought Adesanya twice. Once was for the belt. I don't think Marvin Vettori is going to be in title contention anytime soon. Jared Cannonier fought Israel Adesanya just last July. Got outclassed in that fight. It wasn't particularly eventful. I don't see Jared Cannonier getting a title shot anytime soon. But this is still a fight between two top-ranked guys. Marvin Vettori's number 3. Jared Cannonier's number 4. And I love that neither one of these guys is close to a title shot because you don't have the potential to kill off a contender. Because, if you book both these guys, let's say you switch the matchup with Strickland and Magomedov, then you have a potential where, let's say Marvin Vettori beats Magomedov and Cannonier beats Strickland, it kills off 2 potential matchups we haven't yet seen against Israel Adesanya. So I like the matchmaking here by the UFC. I'm not in love with this fight. I don't think it's going to be like the craziest fight ever. Marvin Vettori is just a guy that his fights aren't boring, but it's been a long while. It's been since that Paulo Costa fight back in October of 2021. I guess that wasn't that long ago since he really had a great fight. The Kevin Holland fight wasn't great. The Israel Adesanya fight wasn't great. And I know that's on both of them, but it's just I don't get super excited for Marvin Vettori. Jared Cannonier throws nasty power. Some people thought, that he lost his last fight against Sean Strickland. Or he won against Sean Strickland via split decision. I thought Cannonier barely won it, but it was 50-50. Could have won either way. Fight before that, he lost to Israel Adesanya. Fight before that, he KO'd Derek Brunson. Fight before that, he beat Kelvin Gastelum. I actually thought Cannonier might have lost that fight. But when I look at this stylistic matchup, Jared Cannonier is a very good defensive wrestler. Marvin Vettori's striking has looked like it's regressed, and it's never been particularly great. I got to go Jared Cannonier in my early prediction for this one. I think Jared Cannonier by decision. I think he's going to land the bigger shots. Marvin Vettori's super tough, so I don't see him really going down or anything like that. But who knows? Marvin Vettori seemed gun-shy against Roman Dolidze, so he could be gun-shy against Jared Cannonier. He's very hittable. The defensive striking isn't particularly good by Marvin Vettori. The offensive wrestling is not going to be good enough to control Jared Cannonier, so I have to go with Cannonier in this matchup for an early prediction. Now, what is going to happen with Israel Adesanya? Because you look at the rankings, number 1 is Alex Pereira. He's going to 205. Izzy sent him to light heavyweight. Number 2 is Robert Whittaker. We just talked about it. He is fighting number 6 in Dricus Du Plessis. Number 3 in Marvin Vettori is fighting number 4 in Jared Cannonier. Number 5, Paulo Costa does not have a fight. And then you get down to, I already talked about 6, which is Dricus. Number 7 is Strickland. He has a fight. Number 8 is Brunson. He's retired. He's gone. Number 9 is Roman Dolidze. He just fought against Marvin Vettori. I don't know who they're going to match him up with just yet. He's not obviously not getting a title shot. He's coming off a loss. Number 10 is Jack Hermanson, who has a matchup against Brendan Allen, who's number 13. Then you have Nasruddin Imavov, who's matched up with Chris Curtis. So most likely they're probably going to do Andre Muniz versus maybe Roman Dolidze would be my guess. And then maybe Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum and Paulo Costa. I don't know where Kelvin Gastelum is going to be. I do have an idea for Paulo Costa. But what's going to happen with Israel Adesanya? Well, there is a new contender making his way into the division, Khamzat Chimaev. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that we are going to see Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev next, but a comment that Dana White made recently, he said that Adesanya may fight before the end of the summer. Adesanya likes to stay active. Adesanya has had a history of picking out, even when he doesn't have to, even when they don't deserve it, saying, look, everyone is saying this guy can beat me. I want this guy. He did it with Yoel Romero. People wanted to see the Paulo Costa fight. Costa was injured. The UFC wanted him to wait for Paulo Costa. He said, nah, I'll fight Yoel Romero, which was like a nightmare matchup. It ended up being a horrible fight, but Adesanya has a history. And we don't know how some of these other matchups are going to play out, and they're all happening, you know, in June, July, late June, July. So if Adesanya wants to fight in like late July, August, Adesanya is going to need a fight. And I think there is a real possibility in August, maybe at UFC 291, 292, depending on if they have 2 pay-per-views in July. I think there is a real possibility the UFC books Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev, and what a massive fight that would be. Khamzat doesn't necessarily deserve it because, you know, he hasn't had any wins at middleweight in a while, since probably, I think, Gerald Meerschaert. He missed weight in his last fight against Nate Diaz. So does he really deserve a title shot? Not really, but in this case, I don't have a problem with it because he's not necessarily skipping over anyone else. And if Adesanya fights in August, even if you have like a deserving Whittaker coming off a win over Dricus, or a deserving Dricus with a win over Whittaker, they're not going to fight. They're not going to turn around and fight in July again, or August a month later. It's not going to happen. So nobody is really getting skipped. And, you know, Khamzat has hinted at he wanted to fight in July or August as well. He said, you know, I don't want to wait till October. And now he's moving up a weight class. He doesn't have to worry about making the 170-pound limit. I think they could make Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev. If they don't make that fight, which I have a feeling, prediction for me, I do believe we are going to get Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev next. I believe Israel Adesanya is a guy who's deeply connected to social media. And a lot of people are saying Khamzat Chimaev is the guy to beat Adesanya. Adesanya knows that, and Adesanya knows that's the biggest fight for him. Adesanya didn't take a whole lot of damage in his fight against Alex Pereira. He took some leg kick damage. He'll be fine come July, August. He likes to stay active. I see him telling the UFC, look, give me Khamzat Chimaev. Why would the UFC say no? It's a massive fight. It probably does over 1 million pay-per-view buys. The fans want to see it. And Adesanya gets a chance to beat a guy up who's massively hyped up. He's not necessarily ranked. And maybe that is something that the UFC could say, oh, well, maybe because, you know, he hasn't fought at middleweight in a while. But I doubt it. The UFC's never taken the high road and saying, oh, this is a meritocracy. I mean, they're potentially giving Colby Covington a title shot who's 1-1 or 2-2 in his last 4. So I don't necessarily see that. I think they do book it in late July, August. You heard it from me first. If they don't book it, I believe they book Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. And I think that's what a lot of people are going to be saying now. That only makes sense. That is the only 2 fights for Khamzat Chimaev. It will be Adesanya or Costa next. Now, depending on the timing of that, maybe they announce that for June or July and surprise us. Maybe if that happens, then the UFC just kind of has this almost like middleweight tournament and see who comes out of it looking the best and has the most hype behind them. And then they book them against Adesanya maybe like September or October. But I just have a feeling the way Dana White was hinting that Adesanya wants to stay active, I think we are going to get Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev this summer, and that is a very compelling fight. Can Adesanya stuff the takedown and the relentless pressure of Khamzat Chimaev? It will be very, very interesting. Early prediction for that, I might as well throw them out. I've been throwing out a million early predictions in this video. I'm going Israel Adesanya. I think he stuffs the takedowns. Even if he gets taken down early, he has the ability to get up. We've seen it time and time again against Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker. And I think Adesanya probably gets it done against Khamzat Chimaev. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention, and I might as well throw this into the video as well. We're talking about a million different fights. The UFC also announced Jalin Turner versus Dan Hooker for UFC 290 as well. So 290 is incredibly stacked. I love the fight. I can't wait to see Dan Hooker get beat up. He's throwing out IV accusations saying, I have a smoking gun. And then he's never providing any evidence. And I told you guys, the evidence will never come. It is yet to come. And I can't wait to see Dan Hooker get beat up. Then he's going to say Jalin Turner took an IV and he's a weight bully. And hopefully Jalin Turner retires Dan Hooker. But put that bias aside there. Early prediction, Jalin Turner. But that's a fun fight. Jalin Turner just came off a loss to Gamrot. It was on short notice against a grappler. He got out-grappled. It was a close fight. I think he goes out there and smashes Dan Hooker, gets himself right back in that top 10 discussion, and he gets gets a win over a name like Dan Hooker. But yeah, that's my early prediction for that. I'm really looking forward to UFC 290. I don't need any more fights on that card. I think that is a stacked card as it is. But let me know what you guys think about all this. Comment every single one of your predictions down below for each one of these fights I suggested. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. I'm almost to 10,000 subscribers. We're making our way there. I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.